I'm Dominique Hoffman. Welcome back to my channel. And today we are going to be talking about the madness of protests here in the West, in the United States, and juxtapose that to what is happening in Iran, which is a revolution of the people attempting to overthrow the brutal Islamic dictatorship that they have lived under for the last 40 years. Now, despite Iran being the hallmark of everything the West and specifically the left claims to care about, the West is silent. There are zero protests of Western students in solidarity for the Iranian people. Instead, the United States has rallied behind anti-ICE antagonists and also called to free Maduro, the brutal dictator of Venezuela. Not only has the social justice left been silent on what is happening in Iran, they have propped up the civil rights of the illegal aliens who are now here in the United States. And individuals like Jon Stewart want to politicize this and condemn President Trump. And language such as Nazis and fascists, which have come to characterize mainstream Republican ideas, is unfortunately leading to the rise of actual fascism and Nazism on the American right. But that's for another video.
Reason for intervening in Iran is his reason.
President Trump has warned of striking Iran if the regime kills protesters.
There seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed.
We may have to bomb Iran to prevent Iran's government from shooting protesters. Look directly into camera with an expression of half bewilderment and despair. P.S. John, don't read this part.
Trying to compare the death of Renee Good to the now thousands of Iranian protesters is an insult to all things liberal norms and rights. Renee Good inserted herself and interfered with an ICE raid and ignored the federal agents who told her to get out of her car, and then proceeded to try and escape the scene and run over the officer. Now, that officer, fearing for his life, because there's tons of videos showing emboldened social justice activists in America thinking that it's their right to just steamroll over ICE agents or police officers, felt his life was in danger. So he took a shot. Now, is her death unfortunate? Yes. Does she deserve to be made a martyr like George Floyd? No. So not only is the liberal left and the liberal media ignoring what's happening in Iran, despite the fact that they have lied and propagated what happened in Gaza for the last 2 years, they're now using those protests to condemn President Trump for what happened to Renee Good. Again, a woman who inserted herself because she was so ideologically indoctrinated by the social justice left's ideology that she elevated herself to the position of martyr. Now, this is important. The woke right is preaching a pseudo-Christianity. The woke left preaches a neo-Marxist, postmodern, anti-religion, but essentially it is a religion. Protesting is a way of penance. If you get killed in the line of action, you become a martyr. Divesting of your whiteness is your confession. And participating in social justice is a form of communion. That is why we are seeing protesters rally with such emotional zeal to defend the rights of their neighbors who are illegal migrants here in the United States, many of whom, like in the Lincoln Riley case, are sex offenders, murderers, or have prior felonies. The CBS article emphasizes that there are over 12,000 who are feared dead after Iran protests, as videos of bodies shown line up at morgue and as families come to identify their bodies. What is happening in Iran is not the same as what's happening here in the United States with ICE. What's happening in Iran is a government turning on their own people, a people who do not have free and fair elections, who do not have freedom of assembly, who do not have freedom of speech, who are calling for regime change. This is a revolution. It's not a protest. What's happening here in the United States are civilians inserting themselves in federal operations to defend illegal aliens who do not share their same rights. The Free Press posted this video and it shows the body bags of many protesters, but it emphasizes that minimizing what's happening in Iran not only goes against, like I said, everything that the woke left claims to support, but it's an insult to human rights. May I note, the United Nations has said nothing. Ivy League institutions across America have said nothing. This is called intellectual inconsistency or incongruence. Now, why is this? Because the woke left has an unholy alliance with Islam. For them, the Arab world represents the colonized, the Western powers that used to govern the Middle East post Ottoman Empire represent the colonizers. It fits into the neo-Marxist left's oppressor-oppressed paradigm. Now, on the woke right, Islam is also a coalition builder, if you listen to people like Tucker Carlson, because they support traditional marriage, they're anti-LGBTQ+, or because they're against abortion. And it's for those ideological reasons that members of the woke right and the woke left are completely silent to what is happening. Now, I want to show you guys the face of Efran Soltani because he is scheduled to be publicly executed on Wednesday, the 14th. So I'm recording this on the 13th. That means that by tomorrow morning, he might already be executed with the time difference when we wake up here in the United States, New York, Eastern time. The danger of characterizing Republicans, again, mainstream Republicans, as Nazis, as fascist, as eroding Western, as ignoring or eroding Western norms, has sweeping ideological implications. Because first, it minimizes what true authoritarianism looks like, which is what is happening in Iran. And it also creates, and after a decade of being accused of white supremacy or fascism, we now see that as a label of pride for many on the American right. And so we're seeing the true rise of fascism. The monster that the woke left accused the right of for the last decade to 15 years is now actually forming. But this is what true oppression looks like. This is what true authoritarianism looks like. It's intolerance for a public display of political opposition. What is happening with the ICE raids is not a political demonstration. That is interference with a federal operation. Those are two very different things. Because the left is the party of feminism and female empowerment, let's look at the protests and demonstrations happening in Iran, which again perfectly juxtaposes the perceived injustices in America with what's actually happening abroad and what true feminism and revolutionary zeal looks like. A justified revolutionary zeal.
So we've seen what's happening inside Iran during such moments of resistance. Some acts resonate louder than speeches. Some gestures are so powerful they stick in your memory. And here's the viral video that's captured the moment. A woman lighting a cigarette from a burning photo of Iran's supreme leader, filmed in Toronto. It's garnered global attention. In Iran, this video is enough to invite severe punishment. In a country where his image is protected by law, this is open defiance. Khamenei is not just a political leader, he's the highest authority in the Islamic Republic. In Iran, his image is treated as sacred, and defacing it is a criminal offense, and that's why this image matters. Meanwhile, the protests in Iran are unfolding amid severe economic pressure, including Western sanctions. For years, Iranians have been grappling with hardship, and in that climate, this image has become viral. The supreme leader, who represents authority, reduced to ash. The image.
This would be the death sentence. That is what a patriarchy looks like. And yet here in the United States, you have feminists claiming that Renee Good was killed because she was a lesbian. This manufacturing of injustice or oppression not only ignores true oppression because it can't stand the juxtaposition or the intellectual scrutiny, because Iran serves as an example of what true oppression looks like. Just want to note that President Trump had this to say to the Iranian protesters: Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on the way. MAGA, make Iran great again. President Donald J. Trump. Now, why is this important? Okay, so what happened in Venezuela encouraged Iranian protesters. It lowered the revolutionary cascade, which then millions flooded the streets because they see the hope of the United States and potentially Israel intervening. Now, the death of reported 12,000 protesters heightens the political moment and requires President Trump to respond in some way. Now, in this, he says help is on the way in all caps. So we can assume that means some sort of military intervention. Bill Ackman tweeted this. He said, at Harvard, after 12,000 Iranian protesters are assassinated. It's a retweet. Live shot of massive protests at Harvard in solidarity with the people of Iran. The public square is completely empty. Now, after October 7th, it was flooded with encampments of people chanting to globalize the Intifada, which, just so you know what's happening in Minnesota with the Somalis, that's what globalizing the Intifada looks like. What happened on Bondi Beach, the massacre, that's what globalizing the Intifada looks like. So you have liberal students who have the privilege of studying at one of the most prestigious universities in the world, but the United States, sitting in their ivory towers, chanting to globalize the Intifada like it's a human right. And then when human rights are actually being violated at the hands of an Islamist theocratic regime, when women are raped and pillaged, when protesters are shot in the face, when women are arrested by the morality police and then imprisoned in secret locations and their families never see them again because they don't want to wear a hijab, they're silent. And this is the party and this is the ideology that preaches female sexual liberation. So simping for authoritarian dictators doesn't stop there. Last week, we saw protesters in the streets of New York calling to free Maduro.
As the future of Venezuela remains uncertain, protests against the U.S.'s government in the South American country continue popping up across the nation, including here in Albany. CBS 6's Quinn Alexander has the latest.
Stop meddling in their politics, end the sanctions, and let Venezuela be a free, independent country once again.
Okay, but Venezuela wouldn't have the chance to be a free and independent country once again. They haven't been one for over 25 plus years. That's kind of the whole point of why Maduro was indicted and why this is a good thing for the Venezuelan people and why most Venezuelan people actually support what happened.
Dozens of protesters gathering in Townsend Park in Albany demanding the U.S. take their hands off Venezuela. Co-chair of the Green Party of New York, Peter Lavinia, calling for the release of deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, saying capturing a sovereign head of state is against international law.
The United States government essentially conducted an act of aggression according to the United Nations. Both countries are part of that charter. I mean, this is illegal. You cannot do this.
Well, no, because Maduro was indicted, but I think that's exactly what Rubio is going to say.
U.S. officials maintaining the operation was not illegal. Rather, the Justice Department arresting two people facing criminal charges. Maduro has since appeared in New York court, indicted on narco-terrorism charges. Earlier this week, President Trump calling new Venezuelan President Delcy Rodriguez a U.S. ally against other foreign countries.
We don't want to have China there. And by the way, we don't want Russia or China going to Greenland, which if we don't take Greenland, you're going to have Russia or China as your next door neighbor. That's not going to happen.
Because if you want to understand ideologically why these protests are happening, read the signs. Always read the signs. For the 10-7 pro-Hamas encampments, it was globalize the Intifada, Queers for Palestine, Free Palestine, because in the social justice left's ideological framework, Palestine is this moral symbol. Like once that's free, then all other minority cleavages, and identities will also be free. The sign that says U.S. hands off Venezuela, no blood for oil. Okay, there's no war happening. All these signs say end the war. What war? There's an interim president. There's a transition in power. And look at what this sign says. Party for Socialism and Liberation. Yes, let's liberate Maduro because communism has always worked and Venezuela is an example of it. My favorite thing that Marxists or social justice activists on the left here in the United States always say is, oh no, communism worked. It's just never been done right. So North Korea, Cuba, where my family is from, Venezuela, and then different Islamic iterations of it in the Middle East. China, the USSR, no, it's never been done correct despite the multitude of countries and history in which it's been implemented. These people aren't particularly bright. Let's look at how little they know about Maduro and Venezuela.
These Free Maduro protesters on the streets of the U.S. know nada about Maduro.
What do you know about Nicolas Maduro? I don't know much, bro.
Really, bro? Listen, Nicolás Maduro is not a political prisoner. He's the figurehead of a regime that's forced millions of Venezuelans to flee their own country, that jailed political opponents, that's been accused by international organizations of torture, abuse, and disappearances. with deep, deep ties to narco trafficking. Just read the latest U.S. indictment.
What do you know about Nicolas Maduro?
He was kidnapped by the United States government.
He was kidnapped.
Yes.
Well, so what was a kidnapping about?
Kill yourself.
Kill yourself. Kill yourself. You have people who show up in the streets, many of them because they're being paid, who are protesting on behalf of a man of which they know nothing about other than the fact that the U.S. arrested him, which, by the way, is exactly what's happening with these anti-ICE demonstrations or interferences of these social justice mobs who are interfering without knowing who the person being detained is, many of whom have prior records, have raped women, or maybe have even murdered someone. This is what a society void of religion looks like. Social justice activism becomes a socializing mechanism. It becomes an identity for self, for authority, a source of empowerment, of moral justification. And because it reflects no semblance of truth, capital T. In fact, it rejects it. It's intellectually dishonest. It's incongruent with stated policy positions or ideals or norms that the left claims to support or uphold. And we're seeing that now play out with these anti-ICE demonstrations. All right, so let's look at the women. Again, remember, the left is the party of female empowerment. And yet they were silent when Rachel Morin was murdered. They were silent when Lincoln Riley was brutally murdered. She was beaten to a pulp. Her face was unidentifiable. And yet people like Renee Nicole Good want to advocate for her offender, for her perpetrator, and is willing to risk her life despite being a feminist lesbian who, for all intensive ideological purposes, should support the deportation of Lincoln Riley's killer. So let's just remember some of the stories that have gotten us here, because the left loves to frame this as, oh, President Trump is just going in and weaponizing ICE against the people, which, by the way, illegal aliens are not the people. The Constitution does not protect or defend illegal aliens. Rachel Morin is a 37-year-old mother of 5 who was brutally murdered and raped on August 5th, 2023 in Maryland. Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez raped and then murdered her on a nature trail. He was sentenced to life plus 40 years, of which he will be in an American prison where American taxpayer dollars will be used for the rest of his life. Larissa Thompson, 40-year-old mother, on May 2nd, 2025, was shot in her car in what appeared to be a attempted robbery. There were 6 suspects, 3 adults and 3 juveniles. So for all those who also want to defend 14, 15, 16-year-old gang members as children, they're capable of acting like men. Then there's Maria Plitas and her daughter. Maria was 47, her daughter was 11, were killed in New Jersey on July 26, 2025. These are recent. May 2nd, 25, July 26, 25. This was happening as the ICE raids were going on. They were killed by Raul Luna Perez, a 43-year-old illegal immigrant. Their vehicle was struck head on. He was allegedly intoxicated 3 times the legal limit. And then, of course, there's Lincoln Riley, the beautiful 22-year-old college student who was killed January 22nd. The anniversary is coming up. I believe her birthday just passed. Riley was stabbed while jogging near Emory University. I believe she was also asphyxiated and her head was bashed in with a rock. I mean, this was just brutal. Rachel's murderer and rapist was in the United States illegally. He was a Salvadorian national who illegally immigrated to the U.S. prior to committing the murder. Larissa Thompson's was also all 6 illegal immigrants who were undocumented. Maria and her daughter were killed by an illegal immigrant in the United States without legal status. And Lincoln Riley was also killed by an undocumented immigrant who entered the United States illegally. This is why ICE is going in and detaining illegal immigrants who have entered the United States. And yes, are there uncomfortable videos of ICE agents walking up to someone who they profile to be Mexican or from South America and ask if they are natural born citizens of the United States or legal citizens? Yeah, it's uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, no matter what your pursuit of being in the United States is, if you enter the United States illegally, you're here illegally. Every country has an immigration process, and you are expected to follow it, or you will be deported. So why is the United States, the greatest country in the world, supposed to be the exception to that? So now let's look at the actual footage of Renee Good and the incident that happened. Now, I want to point out a few things. They're antagonistic to the ICE agents. When she's asked to get out of her vehicle, she ignores them and then attempts to drive off. And her wife, Rebecca Good, tells her to drive, despite the fact that the officer is in front of her vehicle.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I said go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out the car. Get out of the
Rebecca, the wife, says we don't change our plates, being antagonistic, saying like, come after us. We know our rights. We're U.S. citizens. You have a right to freedom of assembly and freedom to protest and freedom to speech. That does not include interfering with a federal investigation. That does not mean you get to just be a vigilante. So we hear the officer say, whoa, 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 and then he shoots because he perceived bodily harm, which is the only legal defense that that ICE officer needs. It took the social justice community about 10 seconds to try and frame the motive of her murder, not her death, her murder, on her LGBTQ plus identity.
He shot her because she was queer. He shot her because she was queer. You can see so clearly. I didn't think that it was like that before, but when you see the footage, he shot her because she was queer. And you voted for this.
Okay. No, he didn't shoot her because she was queer. He shot her because she tried to run him over. Her sexual identity has zero to do with this. And you see this woman on here trying to personalize what happened to Renee Good for herself because she's also a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And that's how a lot of the social justice activism works. It's inheriting the plight of someone else and trying to frame your own oppression within that. This is a way of organizing their own identities, of justifying their own social grievances politically and socially. I want to share this last clip, and I think it's really important when we talk about how the social justice left is a religion of its own. Martyrdom or suicidal activism is a way for them to sacrifice the ultimate sacrifice for that religion. It's actually really a perversion of the cross and Christ himself. I immediately think of Aaron Bushnell, who lit himself on fire in solidarity with Gazans.
Go ahead! Shoot me! Shoot me! Shoot me! Go ahead! Shoot me! Shoot me! Shoot me! You want to shoot me? You want to shoot me? Shoot me! Go ahead! Shoot me! Shoot me! Never see me! Hurt me! Shame on you! On your grandma!
So in the video, you have a white social justice activist, old Karen, yelling at a crowd of which she's not even confronting ICE agents, throwing a fit, screaming, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me, shame on you, shoot me. For what? Like, you're not even confronting ICE agents and you're begging to be shot. In the name of what? And for what? And for who? And on behalf of who? On behalf of someone like an illegal immigrant who killed Lincoln Riley? Going back to the protests happening in Iran, that is what revolution looks like. Those women are willing to die because their life under the regime is so repressive. Many of them would rather die fighting for their rights than to live in that oppression at the hands of Islamists, who, by the way, I promise you, this Karen screaming to shoot her in the face probably also rallied on behalf of Hamas after October 7th. And yet this woman would rather die for an illegal criminal or for a Hamas terrorist to prove her commitment to the cause. And in this way, I think the social justice left and the radicals within that movement are a death cult, very much akin to a terrorist organization that prescribes to some cosmic warfare that welcomes death like Hamas does. It's the ultimate form of sacrifice to prove your loyalty to an ideology that ironically doesn't view you as an individual, but disposable to the collective identity and cause. With that, I want to note to pray for the actual repression going on in Iran, for those who have been killed, and for those who are set to be publicly executed on Wednesday, the 4th. I'll see you in the next episode.